Hey, how's it going, guys? It's me, Ryan, here from the Nostalgia Factor, and welcome back, Nostalgics, to another YouTuber interview. Today, guys, for today's gaming interview, I am with 480Voltz. If you guys remember him from the Crash Bandicoot Spyro video that I did a week or so ago, then that's the same guy. And like I mentioned, guys, we're going to be doing more gaming collaborations here on the channel. I've mentioned that a couple times in the past. The Mega Man 8 review is still coming. I know I said that I was going to try and have it up for this weekend, but this is a video that's going to take me a bit to do with the different gameplay I got to record, the script I just got done writing, and the different scenes and whatnot. That video is still coming, but Voltz sent me his footage a little bit ago, and I want to get this video up so that way, you know, we can have another interview on the channel, and it gives him an opportunity to get some exposure for his channel. So if you guys want to go and check him out, check out his channel, link in the description down below. He does a lot of different various music and gaming content over there, so I think you guys would be interested in what he has to offer. Either way, guys, let's get his interview, and don't forget to check him out in the description.
Greetings, everyone. I am 480Voltz, and I'm happy to be here. Again.
What was the first video game you ever played?
Well, that's a tough question. I don't actually remember what the very first game I ever played would have been. I can tell you exactly what system it would have been on, though. It would have been my dad's old Commodore 64, which, anybody who doesn't remember the Commodore 64, does anybody remember the Atari? Well, the Commodore 64 was sort of like the Atari, but more vintage, if that makes any sense. Had some original titles on there, like Paperboy and Lazy Jones. Those were games that I used to love, as well as some ports of existing games like Pac-Man, the original Mario Bros, Donkey Kong, Frogger, and tons of other games. But anyway, those were some titles that I played at the very beginning. Those were some of the very first titles I ever played. So, don't know which one came first, but definitely know it would have been one of those games on the Commodore 64.
What got you into collecting or playing games in the first place?
Our parents wanted us to experience the great outdoors and the other stuff and not really focus too much on video games. But in 1998, they did decide to get us an N64, a Nintendo 64. But they ended up actually getting us a Sony PlayStation instead, because my mom doesn't know anything about gaming, so she actually picked up a Sony PlayStation instead. Anyway, I think I got the better part of the deal because, well, Sony PlayStation, in my opinion, has the better games. But yeah, it was 1998, it was a Sony PlayStation, and, you know, we just really got into it. To video games. But then I kind of drifted from video games afterwards. When we played until the PlayStation pretty much broke. And then I just sort of stopped and went on focusing on other stuff in life. And then in about maybe 10 years ago, through the internet and through watching Let's Plays on YouTube, I sort of rediscovered gaming and got into it again.
What would you say has been a memorable experience for you in a video game, such as a specific moment or a specific console?
This is another tough question. One example that I can only really think of is a game like Crash Bandicoot 2. Everything about it was memorable to me because, A, it was a direct sequel to its predecessor, which, to me, that's the first time I'd ever played a game that was a direct sequel to its predecessor. I thought that was really cool. It had continuity. It picks up right where you left off the previous game. Had full-on voice acting, which I don't think I'd ever seen that before, so that was really cool. And just this whole idea of not knowing if Dr. Cortex was the bad guy or really trying to help. Believe it or not, I didn't know at the time. I mean, looking back now, I can see how obvious it was, but at the time, I didn't know. And then there were so many obscure little nifty, tucked-away secrets in the game that I found on my own without the use of the internet, because back then the internet wasn't much of a thing. So a lot of that, I still remember a lot of that to this day, and I just remember being in awe of that. So yeah, I would say that was probably my most memorable gaming experience.
What would you say has been your most disappointing game? Not necessarily a terrible game, but just one that disappointed you personally.
I am going to get so much hate for this. Sonic Adventure 2. I just don't think it lived up to the hype that everybody gave it. Again, I didn't really play it when it first came out. It hasn't been until recent years. I still haven't finished it, believe it or not. But I've seen Okay, first off, I've seen the videos of, all the whole story. I know the whole story mode, so I'm kind of like, that's it? I mean, it's a cool story, but, there's some parts of it I'm just like, that's it? And the gameplay, like, the Tails and Robotnik stages are actually pretty fun to me. The Knuckles and Rouge stages are worse than Knuckles stages in Adventure 1, which I thought were pretty cool. And the Sonic and Shadow stages are just a little too mindless and streamlined for my taste. And everybody says that is like the greatest Sonic game of all time, or at least the greatest 3D one. And honestly, just don't really feel it. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad game, but yeah, like, considering all the hype that it has, when I sit down and play it for the first time, it's sort of like, really? Like, that's it? Because, like, Adventure 1 seems way better in my opinion, but that's just me.
What would you say is your favorite game of all time if you had to pick one?
Well, I already mentioned Crash Bandicoot 2, so yeah, that's one of my all-time favorites. I call it my all-time favorite game, so yeah, there you go.
What style of game would you prefer to play, such as RPGs, platforming, shooters, that kind of thing?
I guess my all-time favorite would have to be platforming, but I recently started getting into RPGs because I love how cinematic they are and the heavy storyline and all that stuff, but also I'm not really into level grinding, so, So I like platforming because they're pretty, straightforward, but I like a certain amount of exploration in my platformers, so yeah, I guess platforming.
What kind of music would you say that is your favorite in a video game, such as a specific level or a specific track from a certain game?
If you look in my playlist of music that I have that I listen to whenever I want, probably more than half of it is video game music. So yeah, when you ask this question, it's not an odd question to me. I love video game music so much. My favorite types usually come from Mega Man games or Final Fantasy games. And I also like Sonic music too. So it's really hard to say. I know my favorite soundtrack on the Super Nintendo is definitely Final Fantasy VI. Favorite soundtrack on the PlayStation would have to be Chrono Cross. But man, there are so many good ones out there. And also, music is one of the big reasons why I love the Smash Brothers series, because of all the different music remixes of old games and new games. There's like tons of different remixes of all these games tons of different versions of all these pieces of music that you've heard maybe from the old NES days, and I just love it. I love video game music so much.
What's the game that you would love to have remade or remastered, either an older game or a game that you would personally love to see?
Chrono Trigger. I really think that it would benefit from remastered 3D graphics. Well, I mean, the game itself doesn't even have to be 3D if you don't want it to, but it could be, or you could try to keep it the same style that it was on the Super Nintendo, but just have the graphics remastered and polished. I'd like to see full-out voice acting. I'd like to see the story sort of refined and tweaked a little bit. And obviously the music I'd like to hear completely remastered. I really think that game could benefit from like an HD remake, basically. And since we're on the topic, we're still waiting on that Final Fantasy VII HD remake, which don't know if that's ever coming or not, but yeah. And I guess that's it for me. Thanks so much for having me again. Always a pleasure to be in one of your videos, and you guys take care.
And that's it for today's video, Nostalgics. Hopefully you guys did enjoy watching this. Big thanks to Voltz for being on the channel. Really cool talking with you, dude. Really great guy. I've done a ton of collaborations and whatnot with him in the past, and he's definitely a guy whose channel is worth checking out, which you can do so via the description down below. And once again, Nostalgics, thank you for watching today's video. I do appreciate it. If you guys did enjoy this video, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel if you want to catch our future gaming content coming your way, including more collaborations, more gaming-related content, and yes, still that Mega Man 8 review, so don't worry about that one. And once again, Nostalgics, that's been it. This has been Ryan from the Nostalgia Factor saying, keep on gaming.